because you know without a shadow of a doubt that things are changing in the economy. And what we're going to do as you listen closely, we're going to talk about the economy and what you should do. We're going to talk about what's going on in the economy, and then Hank and I are going to give you some clear steps on what you should do going forward. So, Hank, first off, for people who probably don't know, um, do you mind kind of keeping people abreast on what is going on in the economy right now?
Well, good morning, Leland. It's nice to see you again, and good morning, everybody. I think I need to approach it from two perspectives. One perspective is what's happening in the U.S., and another perspective is what's happening in the world. So let's take a global view first.
Okay.
As you are aware, there's a major war going on in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine, and you can call it what you want to. You can choose sides if you wish to, but it's going on, and you've got mighty Russia, the second largest military in the world, fighting against the Ukrainians, and they're not as as militarily equipped. But that war is affecting oil, oil production, oil flow. It's affecting food growth, food distribution. Okay, it's affecting the rest of Europe in the sense of people are now pipelines are being disrupted for heating oil and what have you, gas, oil products across the world are being impacted. And now here in the U.S., we're going back up paying over $5 a gallon. So people then might say, and there's some other stuff that's happening. North Korea is lobbing missiles across Japan, and that's got Japan on edge, and South Korea. China is threatening Taiwan with potential war. You've got Russia and the OPEC nations or oil producing countries getting together, and they're going to reduce the production slash distribution of petroleum products for a period of time. That will keep prices up. In fact, it might take prices a lot higher. But there are individuals who do speculation on the investment side. They do speculations and they speculate with commodities, and they too help to influence the price of goods and services. So you've got those global things happening. There's other stuff going on, but you've got that global stuff happening, and then I'm going to bring it home. And it doesn't matter your political stripes. I'm I am I think I'm intelligent enough to recognize that if you only listen to individuals who wear your colors, you may be selling yourself short as far as the bigger picture is concerned. My view is that if we can get people in Washington, D.C. to agree that every human being, every individual in the United States has and deserves certain rights, then the people we send to Washington, D.C., regardless of their persuasion, should be doing more to help us to have a better life rather than pointing fingers. But there's discussion about inflation and recession and who this, that, and the other, and the Treasury should do this, and the Treasury is taking actions and it's increasing interest rates on houses and cars, and people are complaining. And then there's inflation that's going on, and they're saying, well, the government needs to do XYZ because the price of food stuff is going on. I don't know the answer, Leland, to all of those things that are in other people. I don't know the answer to all of those things. But there are some people out there that are smarter than I am who are not being listened to. But by the same token, be careful of who you're listening to. And then I'm going to hush. Here's an example. And this is Hank talking, okay? You mentioned the name Elon Musk and everybody gets all juiced up and giddy. And he's a really brilliant man and he's a savvy business person. So when the richest man in the world is potentially collaborating with two of the most powerful people in the world, the question is what 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 might they be collaborating about that will impact you and me?
Is that a question that we should answer?
That's a rhetorical question. People need to ask it themselves. But if you want to sort of kind of trying to help me to sort of kind of to get through this so that people realize and recognize that I'm not saying woe is me. I'm just saying how do we back away because people are not reading the newspapers. They're not reading magazines. Their information input is stovepiped.
Okay, it's true. That's true.
So if so what's the counterbalance if everything that you're listening to is one dimensional? So that's what I've been grappling with over the last few days is just to say, whew, whew. But then I realized that I have to maintain focus in my own household. So I have over the last couple of days, I sat down and I said, okay, do do I have are my goals realistic? Do I have a plan to achieve those goals? Not only do I have a plan, do I have a strategy to implement the plan?
Hmm.
And then as I'm implementing the plan, the strategy, then the question is what type of checkpoints do I have? Do I have timelines for me to sit back and say I'm on track, I'm not on track, what do I need to do? Make necessary adjustments that are there.
Hmm.
Have I shared my goals or my plan with my wife?
Hmm.
Because I think that if I don't let her know what it is that I'm thinking about doing, when and why I'm thinking about doing, she may think that I'm trying to sabotage the well-being of my household.
Hmm.
And last Friday, you and I sat down for a breakfast meeting,
Hmm.
and I think we were doing some accountability discussions in some fashion. We didn't call it accountability discussion, but I think we had a very good discussion about a number of things. And
Hmm.
I think by talking with you, it caused me to come back home, sit down in the quiet of my office, and run a few things through my head. And as I was running things through my head, I realized that I had gotten off track because life is difficult, and then trying to live in a difficult life is perplexing.
Hmm.
You know, so I realized that we've got an apprenticeship program where we're constantly providing guidance and insight and direction to over 30 people. We could have potentially 600 people within the next couple months in this program. And And if I'm not on my A game, I could be detrimental to the well-beings of individuals who trust, who believe me and trust what I say.
Hmm. Let me interject real quick, Hank.
Please help me.
So as you guys know, I'm a straight shooter. And if you're someone that maybe does not want to get your feelings hurt, now is the perfect time. 100% a-okay. I get it. But you should probably not listen going forward. You should stop what you're doing right now and do something else to distract your time. Um, but if you're going to listen to what I have to say over the next 10 minutes, I need you to listen. I need you to take notes. I need you to take this serious because this is your life. So there are a few things that I'm going to touch on a little bit more in depth with what Hank mentioned. So for some of you guys know, I have a degree in economics. I have a I don't know if you know this or not, Hank, but I am certified in commodity brokering as well as a what they call it, a PMP for project management from Duke University, and a whole bunch of other Six Sigma Green Belt from Boeing Engineering.
So that's why you're so clever.
And all I'm going to say is this: at the end of the day, when it comes to the economy, many of us are looking at the economy on a micro scale. But I need you guys to understand something. When there was an opportunity to change the micro of the economy, the macro of the economy, macro means big. So when we as a people had the opportunity to change the macro, the larger picture of the economy, we did not. Now that the macro is screwed, it is too late to try to change the macro. You have missed that. You have missed that boat.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to influence the macro economy, macro big, the world's economy, is if groups agreed to band together, which groups are already banding together, but in different formats for different things. But if groups agreed to band together and actually become more involved in the political landscape, period.
I hadn't looked at it that way.
Macroeconomics is nothing more than politics. How can I prove this to you without you having to get a degree in economics? Your macro economy is based on something called monetary systems, period. It is
Mm-hmm.
like macroeconomics is truly like that simple. You have economies or you have countries that are based off of things that are called GDP. GDP means how much does a company bring in? Okay, you've missed the boat, ladies and gentlemen. You have missed the boat. If you wanted to change the macroeconomics of something, that should have happened in the 70s. No, like I'm not like there's no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving you no lie, no fluff. I'm going straightforward. So what does that mean? You can't change it. You're not going to change the monetary policy between this country, that country, and the third. You're not going to change the monetary policy between NATO. You're not going to change the currency exchange between Guatemala and the United States. You're not going to change the fact that Bitcoin is becoming a primary currency in South America. It's old. It's too late for that. You missed that boat. So therefore, the only thing that you can actually adjust or really control is and only your microeconomy. Microeconomies have different phases. So we have a macro economy for the world. You then trunk that down into an economy for the United States. You then trunk that down for an economy for a particular state. So if you live in Georgia, Georgia's economy is different from that of the state of New York. If you live in New York, the state of New York's economy on a
Mm-hmm.
micro scale is different from Manhattan versus Rochester, New York. Two different microeconomies. Their levers, their quote unquote revenue, GDP or tax revenue is totally different. The cost to live there is different. The average income, average employment rate, all that stuff is totally different. The only thing you can change at this exact moment, because again, you missed the boat, ladies and gentlemen, you missed the boat 20 plus years ago, over 2 decades. You missed the boat. Ain't nothing to change. The monetary policy that's with China, you can't change that. Not as an individual. If you wanted to change it as a group, you should have banded together 20 years ago. China was under the thumb of what Hong Kong was literally under the thumb of
Britain.
Britain in 1990.
Yep.
If you wanted to change the economy of China, you should have did it in 1990, not now. It's too late. So the only thing you can change right now is your micro economy. Now, what's cool about your micro economy is that you can influence your micro economy enough to where it then begins to spill over into your domestic, aka the economy that's within the borders of the United States. So let's talk about the microeconomy. In order to control your microeconomy, you first got to control what they would have called in the 50s and 60s in school. They called it home economics. Go figure. Because that's all economics is. Economics is the exchange of a market within an area. So just like your home has economics, guess what also has economics? Your piss poor belief system, your mindset. So the only way you're going to change your home economics is by changing your internal economics. The only way that the economics within your county is going to change is if enough homes in that economy were changed. The only way that the state is going to change is if enough counties within that state is changed. That's how economics works. That's why in order to have a GDP, the GDP is based gross, which GDP stands for gross domestic product. That is how you measure revenue for a country. GDP on a global scale is only really based off of the individual country's earning potential. The individual country's earning potential is only based off of the territories or states within that country. Mm-hmm. And economics has it to where it goes all the way down to the specific zip codes. The only way for you to change, to really change that at this point in time, is to actually change your internal economy. Now, here's what's cool. You can change your internal economy by reading a freaking book.
I'm sorry. That was on my to-do list.
It costs you nothing. It costs you nothing but you choosing to invest your own time. You could change your own internal economy by reading a book. And here's a crazy idea. You could choose to read the right book. And then after you read the book, you could choose to take action. If between you taking action and you reading a book, and then you taking action, and then you reading the book, and then you making adjustments, and then you reading the book, and you taking action, your economy is going to change. Because that's what economics is. Paid thousands of dollars for something called a project management professional certificate from Duke University. And it taught me just four things. I'm gonna give you these four exact things, and you're getting this for free. All right. You don't got to go into debt. You got to go to a quote unquote decent or prestigious school based on the region that you live in. This is free. Project management is all about, and they have it broken down into acronyms. They do most of the stuff that way. So the first one is P. The first P is for planning. Go figure. The second letter is E for execution. The second letter, or E, you can have E for execution or I for implementation. Same thing. All right. So you got PI. Then you have M/C. All this might seem like a crazy equations. Oh my gosh, all this difficult. It's not. What you're doing is you plan, you either implement/execute, you monitor/control, then you assess, and then you plan again. In basic forms, I'm gonna put it to you this way. If you live in Fort Myer, or if you live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and you want to travel to Wichita, Kansas, just as an example, the most important part for you to get from point A to point B is you need to know where the hell point A is. You need to know where you're at right now. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't know where you're at, doesn't matter the directions that someone gives you. If you don't know where you're at, if you don't have your starting point, does it matter? No. Because someone could say, oh, just take action. And yes, action is important. But if you're not in the right direction, you just start walking. You could be walking to the border of Mexico. You could. Mm-hmm. You're taking action. So obviously that's not it. So instead, you would have to first figure out where you are. Then after you figure out where you are, you then got to figure out, okay, if I was already at that particular place that I want to be, how can I look back at where I am right now? Like, so basically, here's what you would do. Instead of telling yourself, man, I am someone who needs to make an additional 10 grand for this month so I can basically strengthen my personal economy, right? Get out of the mindset of looking at yourself where you are and then saying 10 grand. I need you to look at yourself as I am someone who has already made that 10 grand. And then you need to reflect back. Then you need to reflect back. I'll put it this way. How many of us have done things in life? Maybe it was high school, middle school. Maybe you had a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you look back in retrospect. You're like, gosh, I'm happy that I'm not with her. She was crazy. I was
Been
good.
there.
I'm so happy, So in retrospect, you can look back at the situation. You can say, wow, you know what? When I took that turn in life, it seemed crazy, but that was actually for my good, right? All I'm telling you to do is, if you're here and you know you want to be here, it's going to be difficult for you to plan your steps to go from A to B if you have never been to B.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's easier to go from A to B if you have someone to guide you who has been to B. It's easier. It's easier if you can think about A and B, and you can put yourself in the position of B, and you can look back and say, you know what? If I was already someone at level B, what would have brought me here? What are the key
Mm-hmm.
things that would have brought me here? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hopefully, it makes sense. But okay. But here's the other thing too. When you control the only economy that anyone can control at this moment is your personal economy. And if you don't have to believe me, but I can guarantee you that before Elon Musk was at this current pinnacle that he is in reference to business, you didn't know who he was.
Had never heard of him.
Why? Because he was only focused on his personal economy. His personal economy became so well that it spilled over into other economies. And now it's on a global economy, a global scale. You want to know why? Because that's how economics works. You just got a minor in economics that quickly. That's how economics works.
Wow.
All the fancy equations, macro equals blah 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 blah. If you look at the macro equation, if you look at the equation for macro or GDP, it's nothing more than you're replacing the income for businesses for the income of a country. Wow.
Leland, you and I talk a lot. I've taken notes, and personally, I didn't know. I know you were highly intelligent. I know that you had done a lot of stuff, but I didn't know that you had done some of the stuff that you articulated today. And I'm not, so people, please listen. I'm doing a little edification on my brother because I respect him, and we have a very, very unique understanding. And the point I'm making is, you don't know what you don't know, but you also need to know that whomever it is that's telling you stuff has the right stuff to tell you. And so, and again, because people are always measuring up. You get around, as dudes, we get around one another. We're sort of kind of checking out what they're wearing and checking out the watch and seeing if they got rings on and checking out their shoes. And we are doing all this typecasting, which is unimportant, because you will find somebody and you go like, oh man, that dude's something else. So we want to go out and emulate that person. And my mom would tell me, and my mom was a religious person, but she would keep it real. She says, son, you don't know whether that man's got a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out. And you're like, what's she talking about? He ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Leland, again, I took notes. I appreciate that. Here's something that people, I'm going to say this. I think people have forgotten, or they weren't able to make connections between priorities, planning, strategy, checkpoints, adjustments, and accountability. You gave them that in Duke University ease. And, you know, so people, you talked about mindset. People have blinders on because they have preconceived ideas as to what success looks like.
Yep.
And you were saying when you've been there, you know what it took to get there. But I was telling some people last Friday, and I'm going to say it today for the audience that's listening. All of your education and all the what you've done, all the folk that you know, even your family background, all of your lofty ideas, all of that has gotten you to where you are right now. If you're comfortable with where you are right now, I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Do you?
But for those of you who are constantly seeking an advantage, until you're willing to change directions, you're going to always be in that type of environment. So you say, well, gee whiz, you go out, "Ah, man, I need to make some more money." So you go out and you apply for another job, dead end job. So all of a sudden you're making 50 cents more, you're making an hour a dollar more, but you have to move across country. They pay to move you. Okay, they may give you a fancy title, but you're now you're in a cubicle. But the cubicle is a cage without bars because you're still working for the man. Okay, I know what it's like to work for the man. I left corporate America in 2003 because my family needed me home, and I tucked my corporate America ego in my back pocket, and I came home. I came home. I stopped driving a big Jag and I got an American made car because my family needed me more. I moved out of a 5,000 plus square foot house, 3-car garage. I gave up all of that because my family needed me more. Stuff's temporary. Stuff's temporary. So for those of you who are listening and you think you are all of that, my question to you is, what is it costing your family for you to be all of that?
So what we'll do is, I think it's something that we can probably have another, like a part two. And so I
Okay.
think tomorrow what we can do is probably go more deeper into that because I think I will show people just again, like you mentioned, plan, implement, monitor what was done, control, which means like perfect little issues, and then evaluate, and then you plan, implement again. So I think we should go in that a little more deep, a little more in detail. It does not, and guys, well, anyway, we'll show it tomorrow, so that people can understand how to do it.
And if you're going to join us tomorrow, I ask you to do one thing. I would like for you to sit down in the quiet of your space somewhere and write a goal for yourself of how you want your life to change within over the next year. That's all. Just no matter where you are, what would you like your life to look like a year from now? And then quantify it. Okay? And hopefully we can help you to change directions and help you to achieve some things that you've been anxious about to this point.